What are some of the big legal hurdles you see growing companies facing these days?
Yeah. So I'm gonna present this in kind of my own framework if I can, and
Yeah.
so I like to think of when I was in house, I'm the only attorney, and I'm like, okay, I've got this IP background, patent heavy stuff, but when I first looked at it, I'm like, where do patents and IP show up in a company, right? And I created this map, and I'm like, okay, you got employees, you got vendors, you got customers, you got product, you got board members and corporate
Hmm.
governance. And I mapped it out, and I'm like, IP shows up here, and IP shows up here, and you got contract, right? And I was like, I was kind of a little overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, IP shows up in like 95% of the places in the business.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it's just an invention assignment agreement. Other times it's licensing out to people or licensing in from people. But it really shows up everywhere. And so that was the kind of the genesis, if you will, of me starting to think of this in terms of, well, what are the legal playbooks that a company needs?
Hmm.
And those legal playbooks will then oftentimes track with growth milestones in the business. So at a really high level, I would say, a business forms, it needs a business entity.
Hmm.
It and sometimes it brings, the reason it forms can vary. If you're in a professional services business, you just need your first contract so you can, work with customers. If
Right.
you're like an idea or innovative like product company, your first instance is, okay, I need a patent on my new invention.
Yeah.
If you're a marketing company, you might be thinking branding. So there's these big milestones along the way, and so some of the big ones that we might talk about is bringing on employees. That's just an area where there's a whole lot of leverage you can get from getting some really good legal help to onboard employees. Onboarding, offboarding, putting just some template documents in place can save you major headaches down the road, right? So
Yeah.
that's maybe number one. Number two, and we can dive into these in more detail, but kind of
Sure.
as an overview.
Yeah.
Number
Right.
two, when you're innovating, so when you're creating a new product, you're creating a new brand, like you have that spark of genius. Maybe you've hired a dev team, maybe you've hired a tech team, and they're working on building a new world, right? For based around your product or your brand. There's a lot of things you can do up front to protect that new creative idea that you've got.
Hmm.
And it's kind of weird because patents you do it one way, and trademarks, even though they're both intellectual property, you do the opposite way. Patents you want to keep them secret, and trademarks you want to use it in commerce and let
Sure.
people know about it. And so there's getting some guidance up front there can be really beneficial
Yeah.
to let you know how to do stuff.